It's Typewriter Tuesday. Let's journey into the past to see what writers of old used to use to ply their trade. What kind of mechanical beauty does Al have for us this week?
Hi, Alton Gansky here with Typewriter Tuesday, episode number 9. I'm glad you could join me in my office today. Well, we have something here that's a little different than what we've been looking at. We've been looking at older typewriters, starting with as early as 1919, and we've gone through the 30s and the 50s and 40s, and there'll be more of those to come along. But what we have here is a little different. This is one of the youngest typewriters that I have. That being said, it's from 1967, which makes it 50 years old, so it's not all that young. But it's different from what we've been looking at in the past because of where it comes from. This is, of course, a lovely little blue. It is a portable, as you can see. And knowing that it's from 1967, you might imagine that it's built a little differently than they used to do back 60 years ago, 70 years ago or more. This is a Brother Charger 870, and it's made in Japan. Brother was a Japanese company that made typewriters for an international market, many of them, of course, coming over here, and many sold under different badges, under different monikers, such as Sears, Montgomery Ward, that sort of thing. They are fun little typewriters. They're easy to use, but they are bare bones typewriters. There's not a lot going on here. This is about as basic as you could get in a typewriter, and it was meant for a particular audience. And that's one of the reasons I was attracted to this. I bought this for very little money, about $40 at a street sale in front of a group of antique shops. And just to look at it, I think you can tell that this is not of the same quality as some of the older ones. It is rather cheaply built. The metal is very thin. You tap on it, and it's like tapping on a tin can. It's meant to be very light, but it's also meant, I think, in the long run to be a throwaway. Its target was not the office market that typewriters originally started out trying to reach, not even the sales market where salesmen had to travel and they would have to type up sales reports and the like. These followed the pattern that began back in the 50s, I think, really after the World War II, when people started thinking about education again, and typewriters began to target families and most of all students. So the ads you would see from those days would feature families, drawings of the family, and they were talk about how good it is for children to learn to type, and then they began to focus on school. So these things were meant for high school students, college students, so they could type their papers and do other kinds of work. And if you follow the marketing line of thinking here, it increases their creativity. As you can see, it's very basic. I'm missing one key. I didn't realize that when I bought it, but my backspace key is missing. The keys are nicely spaced. They're sort of the inverted tombstone keys, that's what we call them, because they look like upside down tombstones. It's different in some other ways, which I'll point out in just a little bit, but it's got all the basics that one needs. What it doesn't have is a number 1 with an exclamation mark on it, but this one, unlike other portables, does have an exclamation mark. We'll talk about that in just a second. As you can see, it's got a paper bail, but notice no rollers. That's one of the things that went. Easy to reach margin guides, that's very nice and very contemporary. Scaling at the top, scaling along here. So all of those are good things, but some of the things you would get on even middle grade portables a while before these came out, such as a paper support that would pop up, well, that's gone. There's none of that. And it's, again, just very, very basic. It does have here to the side, and if you start collecting typewriters, you need to look for these because they can confuse you. This locks the carriage in place. You set it in the middle, and you can push this, and it means the carriage won't move back and forth, which can damage the typewriter. More than once, there's been someone trying to collect the typewriter and think the typewriter's broken because the carriage won't move, but it's because that locks on, so you want to check for those. Let me tell you what else makes this rather interesting. As I said, it was geared for families and students. And if you look at the top, you see a couple of stickers. One is from Good Housekeeping. That's the one on the top. And it's really a guarantee that if anything breaks, they'll replace it or repair it. So it's sort of a good housekeeping seal of support, maybe a good housekeeping seal of approval. Then the bottom one, the one that looks kind of like a ribbon and a first place badge, is from Parents Magazine, and it says it's commended by Parents Magazine. But they're very honest. They say that the brother advertised in Parents Magazine, so at least they made that clear, that, not wanting to have any kind of conflict of interest, I suppose. But nonetheless, what you see in that is, again, they're gearing for family. It's the only reason Good Housekeeping would be part of it, or Parents Magazine would be part of it. Now, let me lift this up again and show you something else that's rather interesting. This was intended for an international market. That's going to be a little hard to see, but I'll try to point this out to you. I said earlier there's no exclamation mark. There is down here, and this is not the usual place for it. But I'll tell you why that is. This is aiming at several different language groups. You can see above the 4 here, just above my thumb right here, there is a $sign at the top. That's usually where you find them. Very typical, nothing big about that. But the next one over, there is a pound sterling sign for those countries that use the British pound sterling. So that's kind of interesting. But then you see some other things that you don't normally see on portable typewriters. And that is, it has diacritical marks. Diacritical mark is something done over or through or around a letter to help with pronunciation. So in this case, for example, we have a tilde over an N, both uppercase and lowercase. So it was meant for Spanish and Portuguese typers, so they could use that. But then there's also umlaut, which are the 2 dots. That's a very interesting key because when you type with it, you push down the shift key, you hit that, you get the umlaut, but the carriage doesn't move. So then you type your next letter and it'll put it right beneath those 2 dots where you want it. So that's kind of a ingenious engineering. It also, for Spanish writers, has an inverted exclamation mark and an inverted question mark, because part of that grammatical tradition is that when you have a question, you have a inverted question mark and an upright question mark. Same thing with exclamation marks for the sentence in question. Rather intriguing that it's aiming at several different language groups in one typewriter. I have seen them for German. I have seen them for other languages, but I don't think, and maybe they're out there, but I don't think I've ever seen them where they're trying to hit 3 or 4 different languages on one keyboard. It types pretty good, and the type sample is just fine. Looks great. The typewriter will last. I don't want to imply that things are just going to fall apart. It's just very basic, and there's been a cutback in some of the things that they use. So I don't think they would last as long as, say, some of the ones from the 40s and the 50s might. That's why we have so many of those, because they just don't go away. They're made to last. These are meant to be inexpensive and affordable to a family, especially a family with kids at home, or kid getting ready to go off to college, or having to do term papers or something like that in school. It's geared for that kind of situation. Not professional writers, not people working in offices where they're going to be pounding on these things 8 hours a day. So for its market, it is a great little typewriter. Again, it's from Japan. Japan began to make a great many typewriters because they could do so inexpensively, and began to compete with American and German markets and the like. And they had a very good run at it while the typewriters were still being sold. So there it is, a Brother Charger 870, sort of a low-end typewriter, but nonetheless interesting. And it kind of shows some history of the typewriter as we moved from one type of construction and engineering to a faster, cheaper way of making typewriters. Well, again, this is Alton Gansky, altongansky.com. Feel free to swing by and visit there. There you can see other Typewriter Tuesdays, or you can also see them on youtube.com/Alton Gansky, and you can see a whole bunch of other videos over there. So come by and visit. Thank you again for joining us for Typewriter Tuesday.